Hello, and welcome to our webinar, Succession Planning or Preparing for Sale, brought to you by Recruiter Magazine and recruiter.co.uk and Sonovate. Welcome. I'm Dee Dee Doak, editor of Recruiter Magazine, and I would like to introduce our panel for today. We have Richard Prime, CEO, Sonovate, Peter Felix, Senior Business Development Director, Sonovate, Nikki Larkin, Director, Succession Planning Limited, Mike Ames, Founder and Scalability Consultant, Recruitment Pioneers, and Nigel Elks, Director, Succession Planning Limited. Let's get started without further ado, and I would like to introduce our first speaker, Peter Felix of Sonovate. Welcome, Peter.
Thanks for that, Dee Dee. Thanks for everyone for joining today. So while we're hosting this webinar, we're seeing an increased interest amongst agencies in the acquisition of competitors or the preparation for sale of their own business. Now, Sonovate is a leading provider of working capital facilities into the recruitment space. And it may be interesting for you to know that 1 in 5 agencies do actually use an invoice financer to finance their sale through or acquisition of their competitors. Now, why do people sell their agencies? Well, the reasons are individual for them. Many may be looking at retirement. Succession planning is a way of achieving that. Many may simply fall out of love with their businesses and may just want to pass that business on. Now, there's several ways in which the business can be acquired in terms of your target acquisition personnel. Now, that could be a corporate sale or an existing sale to your existing government. Now, there's a lot of myths around the complexities involved in the sale of these businesses, and this is the purpose of the seminar today, is to demystify that and to equip you with the knowledge that you will need to take that journey onto the next step. Just a little bit of stats about the size of the market for you, which you may already know. The UK rep market is worth £35 billion. Just take that in for a few seconds. If you add MSPs to that, we're talking about a market in excess of 40 billion. Now, globally, I have the figures in dollars, so please bear with that. It's around $780 billion. Now, back to the UK, we have 32,000 agencies operating in the UK, of which 50,000 agencies number 250 plus. On average, around about 100 agencies are sold through a corporate buyer. The numbers have sold through normal NBOs. We don't know that number because these numbers are not published. So what we're going to talk about today is the processes involved, where you can go to get that advice, and the individuals that you need to talk to. And one such individual is my colleague, Nikki Larkin, who I'll pass over to now. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. So good afternoon. I want to really focus upon to maximize the sale price of your recruitment firm. So there's lots of different various things that you need to focus on. Let me just get this up. Here we go. So various things that you need to concentrate on. One thing that I'm going to start with is your expectations. So there's with recruitment agencies, there's various different ways to value it, but also what you may not be aware is there's different things that buyers look for from recruitment agents. So it's really important to look at what the things are that you're offering to your buyers. So the things that you might be looking at are long-term contracts, repeat business, and various different other things, because quite honestly, it really varies on how much a recruitment firm is worth. It's really surprising in a lot of sectors. The multiples are very clear, but in the recruitment industry, the multiples for potential sales are really dramatic, from negligible at literally some agencies just are not worth anything for sale, to some that are really, really worth a significant amount. So the other thing that to focus upon is processes over people. So this really helps with scalability, and also ensures that you can, as the owner, really be able to step away from the business and it still be worth something. So focusing upon your processes before sale really can help, and can really significantly increase your valuation. It may sound very basic about making sure that you have all your numbers up to date and really good books, but it's surprising how many businesses, when ready for sale, actually have inconsistent records. So, for example, it may be that it's very difficult to reconcile between the statutory accounts and the management accounts. They may not even have management accounts. Now, a really good, well-run business will have management accounts. So if the buyer is seeing that you haven't got any, that's going to be a red flag to them. So having addressing this sort of issue several years before sale is really important. One, because you're really focusing upon making sure that the profit figures for when you do sell are maximized, but also so you've got a really good audit trail for when you get through to the due diligence. What makes your business desirable? There's lots of different things, but some real key things to highlight are long-standing with customer relationships. That's quite nuanced as well, because it's got to show that it's not just about the relationship with the owner as well. So you want to make sure that other people within your firm have good relationships so that they are still sticky when the owner sells and leaves. Really great platforms and systems is a massive improvement to your potential sales price. That is when buyers really get excited, because what they're seeing there is, one, there's great transparency, second, there's great scalability, and third, really good robustness. Especially if you've got some really bespoke systems, that could be something that they could potentially be utilizing in their other businesses as well. So it's really, really important to really make sure that they're really good, and then also be able to really focus upon them and highlight them when you're in the sale. What we also need to make sure is that when you do work with your broker on the sale, that you really pull out the really key important parts that are really making your business really different. So your unique selling points, really make sure that they are clear and clear to the buyer, the full buyer pool. So there's several things that I want to highlight here, and the time frame is really key here. When people are looking to sell, often they won't be thinking, right, I'm going to retire at 55, 65, 75, whatever time frame it might be. But what they're often not thinking about is actually the whole period that it takes to go through a sale. And you really can't underestimate that. So if you don't remember anything else from today, from what I say, please do remember that the time for sale is very significant. So I'm going to demonstrate here just potentially how long that could be. And by really focusing upon this and maximizing each part of it is where you can really maximize your eventual sales price, because you're not cutting any corners through it, and you're really making sure that you're not leaving any amounts on the table. So where are we starting with? So before you even talk to your broker, you as I said in the previous slide, you really want to be preparing your accounts for at least 2 to 3 years to show that you've got robustness, because whatever fabulous future plans you've got, future forecasts, they are really difficult to prove. unless you've got lots of future contracts, that really does help with the sales price. But traditionally, buyers are very skeptical and they do only really trust historical information. So making sure that your last 2 to 3 years really works really well by making sure that they're maximised. Yes, you can argue that there were perhaps one-off things in those numbers, but wherever possible, if you can try and have them as clean as possible so that it's 2 to 3 years of really good profits. So once you've, so if you're thinking about that, okay, well, I want to sell when I'm 60, but I'm 55 now, 2 to 3 years, making sure your business is nice ship shape, you've got your business processes together, your accounts are really good, you've got a really strong management team. So then you're going to look for the right broker for your business and your right sales advisor. So first of all, you've got to find that for a start. Obviously, you might say, yes, let's talk to succession planning. But, most people will look at a couple, if not more, and look for referrals, looking for the best one for them, what's suited to them. So once you instruct them, what happens? So it probably will take about a month of discussions with them to put together all the relevant information and to make sure that they can put together a really good marketing pack. The good brokers will do a full marketing plan for you. So they will be addressing the full market, so really increasing the potential of that buyer pool, because the more potential buyers that you're engaging in, the more that you can potentially increase the price. I personally always like to aim for trying to have perhaps 30 to 40 really good qualified buyers, then gradually get them down, because if I end up with sort of 5 to 6 good offers, that's a really good pool to negotiate with to maximize up that price. But that's a process and there's lots involved, and I'm jumping ahead slightly. So once you've got those marketing documents, usually you'll have an anonymous document so that you don't want to have your clients and your suppliers see that you're on the market. You want to try and keep it as secretive as possible to not jeopardize your current business. And then you will secondly have a more detailed non-anonymous document with your full marketing information in, which your potential buyers would only see after they've been qualified and have signed an NDA. So then what the broker will do is they will spend 2 to 3 months marketing heavily, really trying to find the best potential buyers for you. Once they've really focused upon that client pool for you, they will be having discussions with them, and they will probably be starting to bring you into the ones that are really good. They'll start bringing you into those potential buyer meetings. So we always make sure that we're in all the meetings with the buyer and the seller to make sure that most sellers are generally, they're building up the business. They've got really hard 20 to 30 years building it up. It's their baby, and they probably have never sold another business before. So it's really important that you have a broker that understands the process and holds your hand through it and can give you good guidance all the way through. So we always attend all of those buyers meetings with you. We then eventually we narrow this down and we get into a month of really intense meetings. So if you're running your business, you do need to make sure that you've got a good amount of time set aside at this stage, because it will be a bit more intensive. Your broker will do the heavy lifting, but you do need to be available for the key meetings, and also having time to discuss with the broker potential offers. Ideally, as I said at the beginning, you'll have a variety of offers to choose from, and then you want to carefully go through them with your broker. No offer is the same, so it's really important to very carefully weed through what the differences are between the offers. So you may have offer A from one buyer, offer B from another, and they might, so perhaps offer A is for 5 million, but is over perhaps a 4-year time period. So that's a pretty long time period, and perhaps it might have earnouts in there so you may not even get that full 5 million. You potentially could do. You might have some really good criteria in there that you've got no worries of hitting, but you might be comparing that to an offer of perhaps 4 million, but all paid day one. That's the dream, being paid all the money on day one. So really, you really need to compare all of the terms very carefully against each other, because you generally are not comparing apples with offers. So it's really important to carefully review. Then you should be at this stage starting to select your commercial solicitor. You want to make sure that they're a really good commercial solicitor, that they are proactive, that they're used to doing deals of the size, and that you get on with them, because you'll be talking to them a lot and you need to be able to trust them. So you need to be able to have good conversations with them. At this point, you will be selecting your offer and you will be drafting your heads of terms. Sometimes your broker may draft this, or you may be starting to get your solicitor involved and they draft it. Depends on your broker. At this stage, so you're already, if you think about this, you're on stage 6, but actually you could be 8 to 12 months into the process. It really can take, and no deal's the same. Some deals you can really accelerate and potentially do in sort of several months. Others, can quite easily take up to 18 months or more, especially if there's perhaps some stops and starts. You may select a buyer, and then when you actually go into more detailed negotiations and go through to due diligence, you find that actually it's a big clash. So what we always want to make sure that when you're selecting your potential buyers is you are testing out for your compatibility, for culture and personality, because that is as important as well in this process, because especially if you've got an earnout, because you don't want to have a culture clash and find that really destroys the potential of getting any of your earnout, because your business gets destroyed after the purchase. Typically, the lawyers will take about 2 to 3 months to finalise the sales purchase agreement and all the other different contracts that need to be done, along with the due diligence. So you really want to make sure that it's done thoroughly, but also equally, you want to have lawyers that are doing it efficiently as well. So it's a real balance there. A really good lawyer will make sure that you aren't signing up to anything that could really bite you later on. And then, so you're already probably 12 to 18 months in, and then a lot of buyers, not all buyers, some buyers will be happy for you to disappear on day one, but most buyers will expect a handover period. Could be anything from 6 months to 2 years. Sometimes it can be potentially longer. So therefore, just at this point, just from the point of view instructed your broker, you're really talking about several years. And if you're talking about the preparation of 2 to 3 years beforehand, you really are talking probably about a 5 to 6 year period from the day of starting to really make sure your accounts look good and your processes are sorted, to the point of you actually walking away from the business with your money in your pocket, in your bank, and not having to interact with the business anymore. So it's really can be quite a long period, and that's why it's always very important to start planning for your process as soon as possible. If you're thinking of retiring at 60 and you're already in your early 50s, you really need to be starting preparing now. What's the right time? This is really important, to get the right time so that you can maximize your value. If typically with a recruitment firm, you're typically not selling at the seed development or startup phase. You're generally selling when you've really growth and established, and you're getting into the expansion phase. You can see in the growth and establishment, you're much more at a sharper incline. In your expansion, you're probably a lot more mature at that stage. So it weighs up that it really depends on where you are. You may be at the point that you can't expand because you don't have the investment to be able to do so. And that's why, and that often is the reason why people will sell. So probably the growth and establishment phase is probably quite often the time to go. You might be very comfortable building your firm to perhaps a £10 million turnover, but you just don't have the perhaps the skill set or the financing to get it up to the 50 million, or quite honestly you might just not have the time or the inclination. So at whatever stage it is, it does affect the potential multiples. You really want to avoid selling in the maturity and exit phase, because that could potentially, actually that yellow line there actually ends up dipping down. So you really don't want to get to the point where your business is too mature. You want to be getting it when it's still have a growth trend, and it is still got a good future there. You don't want to leave it too late to sell. To get the mechanics of the deal right, there's just a few things I really want to re-emphasize. Making sure you have your dream team for your exit. So making sure you have great advisors, making sure that you've had great accountants working with you, brilliant commercial lawyers. Perhaps you might be involving great business consultants, like the Recruitment Pioneers, or you might be looking for good brokers. In fact, the dream team is if you get all four really, really good, along with a fantastic management team. That's when you're really going to be able to get it really right. The mechanics of the deal as well, of looking at the actual structure. You want to, I personally am always in favor of keeping things simple, because it's really important that you and the buyer really understand it. So keeping things simple, keeping things to maximize it as well, to have as least risk as possible. As I said before, dream is always to be able to have 100% day one. Quite unlikely though in the recruitment sector, but you want to try and maximize the amount on day one as much as possible and have as little wiggle room for decreasing down that price. Other key areas, really, when I talked about the 2 to 3 years, really focus on making sure that you don't just give away anything. So if you've got areas in your business that really aren't making profit, really be thinking about streamlining before that 2 to 3 year period of the numbers that you're looking at. So really be able to maximize those profits. It's really a delicate balance between making sure that you're providing investment for the business, but also maximizing your profit. So it's a delicate balance in that period. So I'm going to go over to Mike now. Just a few of the contact details, very simple succession planning.